Hello, friend. Welcome to the Pursuit of Prevention podcast. If you are new around here, welcome. I am Bailey French, nutritional scientist and nutrition counselor. And I'm so thrilled to have you here with me today for a very special episode. But if you are a returning friend, welcome to the new name show. The premise of the podcast is not going to change at all, but we're doing a little mid-season upgrade here, a little situation. What was happening is that the name of the podcast and what the podcast does was simply not connecting for you all, and you let me know, which thank you so much. Your feedback matters so much. Your reviews on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify matter so much and are so very helpful. And so what I did was revamp the name to be better in line with what we talk about, what we do here on the podcast, but really more so at Be Well Health and Wellness Consultants. So the Pursuit of Prevention podcast is the brand new name, and that also carries over to our weekly email newsletter. Now, if you're not on the email newsletter, make sure that you go do that. I will link it in the show notes on how you can go and sign up. Two things are going to happen. The first one being that you are going to get a freebie. You get a free recipe page. I believe it's around 50 pages, snacks, appetizers, dinner, seasonal things. It's really helpful just to have you, especially as we move into a new calendar season, have some real tools to be able to build healthy meals off of. Now, the second thing that you're going to get when you sign up for the email newsletter is the email newsletter. And that comes out every week between Tuesday and Thursday. And what is included in the newsletter are most of the time tips. I try and include 3 recipes every month. They will all come in the same newsletter. You'll get 3 at one time. And then some other tips and information to help you start building the belief and being the person and doing the things that prevent chronic illness. Now, that leads us perfectly into today's episode because what we're talking about is your ability to edit your DNA. You did hear that correctly. You can edit your DNA. And with this mid-season upgrade, that is now one of the main pillars of who we are around here. That's one of the main pillars of who you are now. After listening to this episode, you'll understand a little bit more what I mean by that. But you are the type of person that lives your life in pursuit of editing your DNA in the very best way to extend your life, to improve your quality of life, to live every day with more energy, feeling better, less bloating, all of the things, okay? And all of that comes back to editing your DNA. Now, I hear what you're about to say. I know my inbox is about to be flooded with Bailey. There is simply no way. All we've ever been told is that your genetics are what you're born with and they don't change, and that's that. But my friend, that's just not the truth. That's not the whole truth. Anyway, so let's look at the facts here. Breaking it down by the 4 core killers, when we look at heart disease, now that is anything from plaques building up in your arteries to a heart attack, to other heart conditions, maybe an arrhythmia, your heart is beating on a different pattern than what it should be, even blood pressure, hypertension, those are under the umbrella of heart disease. All types of heart disease are 80% preventable. Now, what that means is that your genetics give that 20%. Okay? So what is in your DNA is that 20% category that you can't change. And here's the thing, you can't completely change your genes. Okay, you are born with your genes. What you have control over is your genetic expression. So let's finish up this list here and then come back to that concept of genetic expression, because I could be wrong, but I would probably be willing to bet some money that most of you have never ever heard of genetic expression or understand what it means. And so that's really what we're going to talk about today, because when you understand genetic expression, what it is, what it does, that is what's going to allow you to make the decisions that can alter, edit, enhance that genetic expression. So, train of thought here. Okay. This is a lot of exciting stuff because, like I just said, a lot of you are hearing this for the very first time today. And it's hard not to get excited about being the person that can help illuminate so many good things in your life with this one simple concept. Okay. Okay. Next up on the list is cancer. And just so you guys know, these are going in order. Heart disease is the number one killer in the United States. Cancer is typically number two. Diabetes comes in around seventh. So it's up there in the main causes of death, direct causes of death. So cancer is anywhere from 30 to 50% preventable. The reason why this is such a large range is because of all the different types of cancer. They affect different parts of your body, and some types of cancer are more slow growing, which means you may not be able to catch them until it is in a later stage or well advanced. And at that point, treatment options can be very limited. And that is where we start to see a lot of death happening from cancer, because it could have been growing for years and years without you ever knowing it. And then by the time you go to treat it, treatment simply isn't as effective as it could have been if you had been diagnosed in stages 1 or 2. So that is why we see that big range from 30 to 50%. And on the flip side, that means that your genetics account for anywhere from 70 to 50% or 50 to 70% of your risk of developing cancer. Hear me when I say your risk of developing cancer. Just because you have a gene that says that you are very likely to get cancer does not mean that you have to get cancer. This is what genetic expression can do. Your genetic expression can literally change the trajectory of your life. It can change the length of your life. And that is something you have control over. So when you hear me talk about your genetics are just one piece of the puzzle, I don't want you to hear what I'm not saying. Your genetics are important. They're actually so important that it's something that we really have to focus on if you are very conscious of wanting to prevent the disease that has run in your family. So it's not something that you absolutely have to do to be an overall healthy person. But if you, like me, want to live your whole life and feel your absolute best, be able to put your sneakers on and go play kickball with your grandkids when you are 78 years old, I can see that picture in my head and I want that. Maybe you do too. If you do, then genetic expression is somewhere that would be worthy of you putting a little bit of extra time and focus, especially now. The younger you are, the more time you have to influence and enhance your genetic expression. Okay? That's a really good thing. And the real value in all of this is that even if you are, well into your 30s, 40s, 50s, if you are already a grandparent, you're in your 60s, 70s, what you're able to do when you edit your genetic expression, you edit your DNA, you are modeling and demonstrating how to do that to your children, to your grandchildren. And what that really does is allow you to leave this legacy of health. And by the time it trickles down to your grandchildren, maybe you did already have cancer, but your grandchildren don't have to. They can understand and know how to prevent that type of cancer from ever arising in their body. And that's a pretty darn good gift, if you ask me. That is worth its weight in gold, which means that it's worth some of your time and energy and focus, right? So let's move into diabetes here. Diabetes is 90% preventable. Type 2 diabetes, of course, is 90% preventable. That means that your genetics only have a 10% say in the conversation when it comes to developing type 2 diabetes. Now, the real kicker here, the emotion, the heart here, is that you have likely been told that if diabetes runs in your family, then it's just going to happen. And oh, well, okay, you have insulin, you can take metformin, like you have all these medications that you can take to just counteract it. And if that is how you want to live your life, I'm not judging you. Everybody has their choice, their opinion. You get to do whatever you want to do, and that's okay. I will never judge you for your decision. But if you know that you want to live a life not dependent on medication, if you don't have to be, then you're in the right place here. This is a conversation for you. Okay. So when you are told that, you are at an increased risk of, or you are genetically predisposed to developing type 2 diabetes, that's what we've been told for a really long time. It simply is not in line with the science that we have in front of us today. Countless studies, research is showing that we have 90% control over whether you develop type 2 diabetes or you don't. That is a lot of control that you have in your hands. It's a lot of power that you have in your hands. And even if type 2 diabetes does run in your family, you are more prone to getting it one day. Like we've been talking about, you can enhance that genetic expression and lower that 10% even more to make it almost next to nothing. Again, a lot of power there, but it's really exciting, right? The fact that you have all of this power at your fingertips, and a lot of it is controlled by what you put into your body food wise, man, man, those older traditional communities, Chinese medicine, Native American medicine, don't sound so crazy now, do they? They had something going for them. So when we look at all of these conditions, heart disease being 80% preventable, cancer being 30 to 50% preventable, diabetes being 90% preventable, type 2 diabetes, that's a lot of power that is put back into your hands. Now, the last one that I want to touch on here is inflammation and autoimmune disorders. They do not typically actually directly kill you. That's good news. What they do is give you an underlying condition that is present in 3 of 5 deaths, and the majority of them are preventable conditions. So let's break that down a little bit. Every 3 in 5 people that die had underlying chronic inflammation and or an autoimmune disorder. So it is not the inflammation or autoimmune disorder that killed them, but it did not put their body in peak performance to survive whatever they passed away from. And then that last piece there, the preventable conditions, that is what actually killed them. So, maybe they did develop type 2 diabetes and the diabetes killed them, but their body could not properly fight the diabetes because they had this underlying inflammation or autoimmune condition. Another example would be pneumonia. That is realistically a preventable condition if you get treatment early enough most of the time. If your body is in healthy condition, pneumonia can be treated and eradicated from your body. But if you have chronic inflammation or an autoimmune condition, it can put your body at a much worse spot, much more quickly, and then you are no longer able to fight off the pneumonia and you can die from the pneumonia. So that kind of puts it into perspective a little bit, what we're talking about here. And it also goes to show how important inflammation and autoimmune disorders are when we're talking about health and longevity and holding off death for as long as possible and feeling good while doing it. The nature of autoimmune conditions is that they are autoimmune. They just happen out of nowhere. Your body starts attacking itself. But that's not always really the case. What we are finding more and more often is that stress, environmental triggers, medical triggers, surgeries, immunizations, medications, they can all trigger this autoimmune condition to start. Now, would you develop the autoimmune condition if those things didn't happen? Maybe, but maybe not. So sometimes there is a trigger. Chronic stress at your job can trick your body to kick on into that autoimmune condition. Now, there's two sides to the coin here. Autoimmune conditions, you are automatically at a higher risk genetically if you have one, right? They don't just appear out of nowhere. There is some genetic correlation there. We don't necessarily have all of the answers on that aspect yet. But on the flip side of that coin, if your body one day, especially late 20s into your 30s and 40s, that autoimmune condition just happened out of nowhere, all of a sudden you have a severe allergy to gluten. All of a sudden you can't tolerate protein. All of a sudden your thyroid's not working anymore. That begs the question, if it happens suddenly, can we reduce or reverse it suddenly? Now, obviously, healing takes a little bit more time than injury. Think of a car crash. It happens very quickly. It takes a long time to heal and recover and get back to 100%. Sometimes 100% isn't achievable for a car crash victim. The same is true with everything that we're talking about here. However, what you need to know is that you have control, and the more that you enhance your genetic expression, the more control you take back into your hands. So now that you understand that a lot of these diseases that we're told just run in the family, you're probably going to get it one day, it's just the normal thing that happens in life, now you know that that's not true. This is not happening all over the world. It is not happening in the United Kingdom. It is not happening in China. And while we don't have the exact numbers on what their healthcare system looks like and what their disease rates look like specifically, what we do know is that this narrative being shoved down the throats of Americans is just really anecdotal. This is what we've seen over the last really century start to happen. You know, these conditions are becoming more and more common. They are pretty normal. Our medical standards have gotten so much higher, which means treating cancer, treating diabetes, treating heart disease, heart attack is much more effective. And we are so grateful for that and lucky to have access to that. Because here's the thing. You can't entirely change your genetics, right? You can't entirely change the genes that you were born with. They are what make you uniquely you. We've already discussed that. And so the real thing here is that those genes could still kill you one day. There is no guarantee. And speaking quite frankly, I am not God, so I can't tell you what's going to happen. What I can do is give you the knowledge that He has given me, help you interpret it, and help you make better decisions in your day-to-day life so that you can become the healthiest version of yourself, which greatly reduces your risk of dying from those genes. So now that we have discussed the fact that I'm not a miracle worker and this is not medical advice, let's talk about that genetic expression, the big thing here. So one very specific example that will help you really grasp this concept is something called a tumor suppressor gene. Did you know that every single person has a tumor suppressor gene? Your genetic expression tells your body if that gene is on or if it is off. Just like this light switch back here, that gene can turn on and off, and guess what influences the on and off state? Your food, the levels of nutrients that you have, your fluid balance, your stress at work. All of these things influence your genetic expression. Now, for a tumor suppressor gene, you want it to be on, right? Tumor suppressor genes suppress tumor growth. Therefore, you want it to be on so that it is constantly suppressing any tumor that may be growing in your body. Your genes, what's passed down through your family, and or your daily choices of food, of liquid, of stress, of body care products, these choices can turn the gene off so that the gene is not suppressing tumors. And then you see tumors start to grow. Cancer starts to spread quickly because your tumor suppressor genes are not expressing in the way that is optimal for your body. Okay. Now, the shocking part here is that many, not all, but a whole lot of genes in your body function the very same way as the tumor suppressor genes. They can be in an off state, they can be in an on state. They can switch between on and off. Sometimes you want that. If you are looking at a gene that is supposed to switch on and off based on feedback loops inside of your body, and somebody has taped the light switch on, that's not a good thing either. What we're talking about here with this light switch effect is your genetic expression. Your genetic expression is entirely controlled by the choices and habits that you make in your home, in your life, every single day. That may sound a little daunting and overwhelming, but what I want you to know is that it's really empowering. It can be really empowering. That means that every single decision you make on a daily basis is an opportunity for you to make a choice that is either going to improve your health, keep you in the same spot, or potentially set you back. Now, here's the thing. This is not a perfect and exact science. What you want to do here is tip the scales. So for a minute, stop and think for me about a balance. You know, an old justice system balance. It has the two plates on either side, the big thing in the middle. You put rocks on one side and that side goes down and the other side rises up, right? When you think about balance, those scales are exactly the same. They are dead even. When you are trying to change your genetic expression, you do not want them to be exactly even because that means each one, health promotion, disease promotion, have the exact same weight. You're staying exactly where you are. Nothing is changing. When you want change, when you want to improve, enhance, edit your genetic expression, you have to tip the scales. You have to add more into the category of health promotion. More fruits and vegetables, more antioxidants, potentially more water, less red meat, less processed meat, right? Finding this balance depending on where you're at. Now, here's the other thing. For a lot of people, especially people listening to a podcast like this, that's also going to look like adding a whole lot more than subtracting. Raise your hand, send me a DM if you have ever followed a low sodium diet because you heard that it is good for your blood pressure, it reduces your risk of heart disease. Yeah, maybe? Well, that constant low sodium state has put your body in a place where it is deprived of sodium. Your adrenal glands that produce cortisol, the stress hormone, they use sodium every single day. They use it at an increased rate if you are stressed out every single day. If you are very stressed and you eat very little sodium, guess what's probably happening? You might have a sodium deficiency. And in that case, you can add more salt into your diet and tip the scales into the health promotion category. It's crazy. It's blowing my mind. I already know all of this stuff and I'm still blowing my mind saying it out loud. Mostly for the simple fact that we just don't know. We are not told these things when we go to the doctor's office. And it's not their fault. They don't have time. They don't have the bandwidth to learn all of this and go research and keep up with the new research and the new statistics that are out there. And realistically, that's not their job. I think we've talked about this before. Go back and watch some of the other podcast episodes because it is not your doctor's job to teach you what I'm teaching you right now. That's why I have a job. Okay, their job is to be able to diagnose you when you're sick, They can order tests and tell you if you're sick or not, and they can prescribe you a medication for that condition if it is warranted. That is the bandwidth, that is the scope of practice of a medical doctor. That's what they're supposed to do. And now, with all of this new information coming out, they simply can't keep up, and we shouldn't expect them to. Again, that's why people like me have a job. That's why we have these other categories within the healthcare umbrella. What needs to happen is that everyone needs to be a little bit more open and accepting to this new research that is right in front of us. Just because you haven't personally read it before doesn't mean that it's not out there and that it's not true. On the flip side of that coin, just because you've read it also does not mean that it's true. Talking to you, Facebook, misinformation. Also, talking to anyone that has read an actual medical journal but has never taken a course or had any type of focused study in a professional development program that teaches you how to read and interpret a medical journal. This is not to shame you, again, just to educate you so that you can make a more informed and better decision for yourself. If you're spending a lot of time reading medical journals, you might be wasting a lot of time because if you don't know how to interpret the results, it can be very easy to misinterpret them and cherry pick information that might be between the lines but isn't actually listed anywhere. So, now we're going down a different road here. And you let me know in the comments, in DMs, if this is a show that you would like to hear, how medical journals should be read, this whole conversation that we're about to go down the rabbit hole on. If you want an episode on it, I can do one. But for right now, let's swerve back into the lane of genetic expression. And let me ask you, how do you feel now when I tell you that heart disease is 80% preventable? That cancer can be up to 50% preventable? That type 2 diabetes is 90% preventable? Hopefully, you feel a little bit more encouraged, a little bit more like, okay, yes, that makes a lot of sense. Now, what do I do? What's the next step, Bailey? I got you. I got you. I will do a follow-up episode to this to give you some tips on where to start with enhancing your genetic expression. But something else that you need to know is that editing your DNA, enhancing your genetic expression, this is one of the several pillars that is a part of the Food Fights program. Now, you'll hear a little bit more about Food Fights in the coming weeks, but it is an 8-week program that I offer on these 4 core killers: heart disease, cancer, type 2 diabetes, and autoimmune conditions/inflammation. The reason that they are broken up like this is because maybe cancer runs in your family and autoimmune conditions don't. So why do you need to pay for or really put your focus on, right now anyway, autoimmune conditions when you really just want to prevent cancer? So a whole pillar, a foundational piece, foundational brick of these programs, each and every single one of them is enhancing your genetic expression. And I teach you exactly how to do that with one-on-one coaching, training videos that are dropped in your email inbox each week, meal plans, group coaching. You have everything that you need to be able to enhance your genetic expression. And the real value of doing it inside of the Food Fights container is that I will know what genes you have and what genetic expression we are trying to reach. Because I can sit here and babble off all of these suggestions and recommendations, but if they are not tuned into your genes and the ones that you want to change, you might be throwing spaghetti at a wall and nothing is sticking, right? So if you have any questions about Food Fights and how to get early access to the course, go ahead, send me a DM on Instagram. I will go ahead and put that in the show notes so you can click, go straight to my DMs. You can also send me an email at any time, bewellphc, bewellphc@gmail.com. All of this information is going to be in the show notes for you. What I suggest you do first is pause this, rewind and go back to the beginning and listen one more time. If you can, if you're in a safe spot to do so, take some notes. Then we can talk about your next steps, what's important for your body to be getting so that you can prevent cancer, prevent type 2 diabetes, start to reverse some of the high blood pressure, the high cholesterol that you have. These things are so possible. And when we look at them from a bird's eye view, they are really simple. It is not easy to enhance your genetic expression. It is simple. Okay. Thank you for spending your time with me today. If this got you interested, let me know. Subscribe to the show on Spotify. Leave me a review on Apple Podcasts if you've been around here for a while. Let me know what you're excited about with the new Pursuit of Prevention podcast. I have a lot of really exciting and very intelligent guests lined up for you guys over the next several months. So make sure that you subscribe so that you get notifications every time a new episode is dropped. I'm so grateful that you're here, and I'm so grateful that I got to be the one to share this concept of genetic expression with you today. This is a safe place, so I want you to know that if you send me a DM, there is no wrong answer, there is no silly question. This is, again, a very new concept, and it's very important. It's honestly very urgent. Your health in 20 years depends on the choices that you make today. So the sooner that you can get into a container like food fights, or that you can start making some of these small, simple switches to improve your genetic expression, the better off you will be in the long run. The simpler, the easier, honestly, it's going to be to improve your health 20 years down the road, whatever that might look like for you. So my inbox is always, always open for honest and safe conversation. If you want to get started on this journey, you have a safe place to do that. It doesn't have to be scary or overwhelming. It can be really exciting. And I am here to walk alongside you, hold your hand throughout the process, as much or as little as you need. Thank you, my friend. I will see you very soon with a very good friend of mine for a very, very special message. But until then, stay well. Thank you for being a part of this conversation today. By sharing with just one friend, you are not only showing the people that you love that you care about them, but you are helping this message that healthy does not have to be so hard reach hundreds of other people. Be sure to check out the show notes and visit www.bewellhwc.com for more information and to subscribe to the show so that you get notified every time there is a new episode available for you to learn more health tips and help you achieve your healthiest self. I cannot wait to sit down and chat with you again so soon. Until then, stay well.